Motion Department. You're about to enter our fitness forum where Damien and JT will be discussing topics that are important to you and your health. Before using any exercise technique shown here or making any changes to your dietary pattern, please consult your primary care physician for advice. Let's dive into this forum and see what's on the agenda.
Hopefully it is better this time.
Oh, thanks for joining us. You're here at the Range of Motion Department for a fitness forum. Our fitness forum is really designed to give information, valuable information that's research-based. Most information people get, I think you would agree, JT, is really from sources that are attractive, magazines, things like this. But unfortunately, when we read things from magazines and articles and such like this, they're pretty well biased. We're going to take a little different approach today. We're not going to take a marketing aspect. We're really going to go over things that really help you get where you want to be and get there safely. The main point of our discussions today will lead into nutrition, as well as exercises, and as well as orthopedic health. So we hope you really enjoy our show today. And I'm lucky enough to have some very good professionals in the field as far as healthcare goes. We have JT Zigothy. He's a physical therapist out of Washington Township. JT?
Nice to meet you. Yeah, like you said, I work in Washington Township. I work out at Kennedy Hospital right now. But I've also done a lot of affiliations with outpatient and sports-related things. So I have seen a lot of orthopedic injuries and things like that.
Yeah. So, I appreciate you coming in, JT. I know you're going to have some great things to say, especially about lower back a little bit later. Angela, I know you work in the field as well, okay? So I know you actually teach in healthcare. So I know you'll be moderating for us today as well, okay? So with that said, what's on our agenda for today?
All right, the first question I received from email after polling some of my coworkers and friends to see what kind of things they wanted to know about. First question, what is the best protein post-workout and how much?
Okay, well, that is a popular question. When I'm in the gym, many people come up to me and ask, what's the best protein to take? How much do I take? Things of this nature. Well, to kind of back up things a little bit, I'm going to talk about the importance of recovery. Now, off the bat, protein is a very important aspect of recovery, which most people know, but it's not the only aspect. To give you a little background on this, as we're all working out, especially with anaerobic activity, your body mainly uses sugar as fuel. The more intense the exercise, things like that, the more the depletion of this glucose within your body comes into play. Your body holds stores of glucose called glycogen. These fuel stores are depleted during high intense workouts, whether it be strength training or even endurance training. Okay? We're going to keep our subject based on strength training at the moment, and then we'll really talk about the endurance athletes, because I know obviously JT, you're a triathlete yourself.
I try to be, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Did a couple this summer, right? One or two, right? So, number one thing is when you're done your workout, to keep our conversation a bit briefer, when you're done your workout, your levels of glycogen, if you did the right thing during your workout, has been depleted. Number one thing your body wants to do is replenish those glycogen levels. If your body doesn't, if you don't give your body the things it needs to replenish those glycogen levels, your body will find alternate ways. Your body has the ability to actually convert protein into glucose to facilitate that need. It's called gluconeogenesis. So the reason I bring up that point is if you're just ingesting protein after your workout, now mind you, there's plenty of beneficial reasons towards ingesting the right kind of proteins, but if you're just ingesting that protein, you actually risk losing the benefit of it. But with the right ratio of carbohydrates to protein, which for the average strength trainer is going to be a 3-to-1 ratio, that means 3 part carbohydrates to 1 part protein. For most of the guys out there, that means 60 grams of mostly high glycemic carbohydrates to 20 grams of protein for the ladies out there. Okay, they need it too. It's going to be 10 grams of protein for 30 grams of mostly high glycemic carbohydrates. Now, the reason that's so important is when you replenish those glycogen levels, now whey protein can really get to what it needs to do. And I know you have some information on how whey protein naturally works.
Well, one thing that's special about whey protein is not only is it a fast digesting protein, which means it gets into your system faster, it also has the right amino acid complex to help stop myostatin. Now, myostatin is something that kind of stops muscle. When you're weight training, especially for masking, it's called hypertrophy. Now, myostatin stops hypertrophy from happening. So if you take the whey protein with the proper amino acids, it will stop the myostatin from forming and allow you to hypertrophy, which makes you grow bigger.
Yeah. So all the above, it helps with recovery, and the effects of myostatin can be, really devastating towards the results you're trying to get in terms of strength as well as hypertrophy. So the answer to that question, number one is yes. There is a better protein to ingest, whey protein. Number two, make sure that the whey protein you pick is hydrolysate or pre-digested, if you will, okay? Because post-workout, you want things in your body like now. If you don't get these things in your body very quickly, the glucose and the protein, your body's left to its own devices. And that means it's going to be a longer road towards recovery. So longer roads towards recovery, so longer road towards adaptation, if you do adapt. But chances are, if you're not ingesting the right things, not only throughout the day, but after your workout, that can be stale to you in your training, okay? So hope this gives you a little better insight, but a little bit later we'll be going over some great products that we actually have to help you with the recovery process. But to give you an idea, I'm going to be honest, as I said a little bit earlier, this session is not about marketing, okay? You can actually go out to the store after you're done your workout, get low-fat chocolate milk. Okay? They've done it in numerous studies. They compare that to the hottest products on the market, and glycogen replenishment is the same. So with that said, really kind of work on your post-workout regime is with something as simple as chocolate milk. Easy as that. Sounds pretty good, right? I know my clients like it. Now, JT, I know that you're really into endurance training. Now, we just talked about some weight training a little bit. Let's go over kind of how some of your more intense workouts are.
I mean, I know for me, like I'll go out and I still lift inside because some research that I've done has proven that having a strength base is always good because it helps improve your power for your endurance training. So I still do both, but I also will go out and I'll run and I'll ride and swim or whatever day it happens to be in the week. And I know one thing I was always curious about is because I'm doing so much more, should I be eating more and what's the ratios that you do and what should I do at the right times? As well as, we were actually talking about this a little earlier the other day, Dave, we talked about carb loading. Is that the thing that works? And I've heard so many different techniques.
Sure.
Which one has you found in your research that works the best?
Well, again, just like we're taking questions here today, we got to back things up a bit. Because basically with carbo loading, or to give you guys a definition of carbo loading, basically that's, if done the right way, it's a way of your liver and also your muscle cells super compensating their levels of glycogen for competition. That basically means you can actually do things in a way where your levels of glycogen are up before your competition. What that means is you're able to last longer and perform better for a longer period of time. But to back up a little bit, carbo loading is a technique you can use with a good strategy, but it's just a technique. A good strategy lies in the way you're currently eating consistently. When I work with my clientele, the number one thing especially when they first start training, I kind of keep the training part of it lower intense, of course, to kind of build up their anatomical adaptation. But I really kind of stress that nutritional habit building. Because when you build up better nutritional habits, JT, just from the foods you're eating throughout the day and have those proper ratios that we're talking about, which I'll lead into in a second, because it is different for an endurance athlete than it is for the basic strength training or the person who's trying to lose body fat. When you get those habits together, automatically your performance will automatically, like you just told, will get to their optimal level. Because after your intense workouts, they are depleting. If you're not eating the right things on a regular basis, not just post-workout, because glycogen replenishment just doesn't happen after workout. It happens, especially with high levels of volume, it happens over like a 48-hour period. If you're not ingesting those proper foods, that means your glycogen levels remain at a suboptimal level. Through better eating patterns, you can gain a higher glycogen level, and thus, just through the glycogen level, improve your performance. Now, when that's all said and done, JT, and I'll be happy to, we'll talk about this a little bit later and how we can actually do that. We can actually make a segment on that. Then we can talk about a tactic within that strategy. And no doubt about it, when you do it the right way, because one good thing that your body does, if you treat it the right way, your body is good at adapting. And one of the ways your body adapts to stress is by to kind of super compensate to it to make itself stronger. And when you deplete your body of glucose, or I should say carbohydrates for a certain amount of time, your body is itching to have a higher glycogen level. So with the right strategy, mind you, it's the right strategy, guys. And this is where some coaching can really help you. Not just looking on a website and going for things. Really take someone with experience, things like this, or see a registered dietitian, or see a well certified trainer to get the information from them, or at least to coach you with that information. But when you do it the right way, you will see that those competitions, your times come down just automatically. Okay? Because it's all about how your body uses glucose and creates ATP. Because no matter how much you train in the gym and things like that, your body does not have that sugar to create that ATP, which is movement energy. Performance will decrease. Okay?
Let's take a quick recap and summarize some of the points Damien and JT brought up. The benefits of whey protein, the importance of the right ratio of carbohydrates to protein in your post-workout nutritional regimen for the recreational weightlifter or the strength athlete, and the endurance athlete. All right, let's get back to the forum. Okay, let's switch gears a little bit and ask you about exercises that would be helpful. What are the best exercises to build back and ab muscles?
Well, I think that's a very important question. When I've seen things I've seen in the gym is really people doing inefficient exercise for non-effective reasons. And I know you have a lot of experience working in that field. You do.
I do. Well, one thing people try to do is they try to get in the gym, and the first thing I'm sure to come to is I want to lose body fat, I want to get the six-pack. But as I'm sure we'll go over later, doing a simple exercise will not do that, especially one that, as you talked about earlier, is so low calorie burning, is laying on the floor doing a crunch. You're laying down doing exercise, it's not going to help that. But to backtrack, you can't just go into it saying you want to strengthen your abs, because most of the exercises you'll see either in the magazines or online or that people know are going to strengthen the rectus abdominis muscle, which is actually not what you want to do as far as a stability and mobility standpoint.
Now, could you go over that a little more clearly? I don't think a lot of people
The rectus
understand.
abdominis is that typical six-pack that you see. When you see someone do a sit-up, you actually see something that looks like something popping out of their stomach. That's
Sure.
actually a sign of a lot of instability in the spine, a lot of weakness. You do not want that to happen. What you want to strengthen is the muscle. You want to strengthen the internal and external obliques, which are the muscles on your side, and then the transversus abdominis. The transversus abdominis, which is an internal muscle, you can't really see it too well.
Like the weight belt muscle.
Yes, it's the weight belt muscle. It's also referred to as the internal corset.
Okay.
And we talked about that in the earlier segments, but it's when you have a good, strong corset around you, just like when you put the weight belt around you, it's actually a lot better than a weight belt.
Because you're developing
Because
strength.
you're developing strength, you're doing it on your own. You can do any kind of movement with keeping the proper form, keeping your spine in line.
Right.
Because one of the most common injuries in the spine is a herniated disc. I mean, a lot of people, I'm sure a lot of your clients say, oh, I have a herniated disc, I have this, I have
Sure.
that.
Always to begin with.
The thing is, now, a herniated disc can be very painful and can cause a lot of things. It doesn't necessarily mean that that's causing the pain.
Right.
There are a lot of studies that show that 60% of people in the country right now will have a herniated disc but have no signs of it.
Sure.
So what causes that is actually something that will feed back into you, but it's repetitive motions can cause a herniated disc.
Sure.
And if you're sitting there on the ground doing constant flexion, you're opening up that vertebral
Sure.
foramina and you're just letting the disc pop out.
Right.
So without doing that, by doing all the triplanar movements and functional mobility movements to keep your proper mobility and stability, you're not going to allow that to happen, and you're going to get the strong core that you need to be able to get the look that you want.
So I think, and you definitely brought up some good things that people may not be familiar with, like triplane movements, quadruped movements, things like this. I know you had a chance to work with Chris a bit earlier, but before we kind of head into that, I know we have a question coming later, but a lot of people with their abdominal exercises, they do it for ineffective reasons, and their strategies are thus ineffective. As you brought up a little bit earlier, doing ab exercises to burn calories. Well, the one thing you're doing is if you're going on the ground, there's been some studies on it, not been conclusive, but when you're doing repetitive motions like that, besides like potentially making muscles like the multifidus that basically run up your spine that kind of work on lateral stability, getting those areas loose and getting other ligaments loose, which creates more instability in the spine, can actually wear away at certain intervertebral discs like L4, L5, S1, and that leads into long-term issues. So to really kind of go over this question on what are great exercises for your back and abs, I think one of the biggest things we're bringing up are, first of all, they're the safest exercises. You must pick exercises that provide stress on the muscle, but also support and less compression. Okay? So you did have a chance to work with Chris a bit earlier, so we're going to go to that right now.
Okay. Okay, so as we talked about earlier, one of the ways to properly train your abs is to maintain the internal corset of your body, which, as we discussed, was the internal and external obliques, transversus abdominis, as well as multifidus and other back muscles. Now, one way you can begin to train this and to have it become second nature for you is to start laying in a supine position, bring your knees up to help flatten out your spine. If you take your hands, put them just inside your hip bones, and then try to tighten your muscles so that you feel a muscle pop out down here. So squeeze your stomach. Good. Right there. You shouldn't see your stomach come up. It should just be a muscle right down here, just inside of that hip bone. Once you do that, now just be relaxed, breathe normally, and you just do sets of 10 seconds and then relax as many times throughout the day as you want. And the way you progress this is you go from a laying position to a sitting position. Then you can go to standing up, and then you go to walking around. And then eventually you're doing it where you don't even realize that you're doing it. Alright. So, now that he's mastered keeping his internal corset tight, and we just had him walking around the room earlier, talking, having a full conversation, he can lay flat on his stomach, hands out in front. And now, one thing that we talked about earlier with the hip video is that you don't want to have everything acting at once. You want to have them acting properly. Now, it's hardly ever do you have both sides of your lower back muscles activated at the same time. So this exercise is going to help to train you to activate in the cross, which you normally do if you're reaching for something or moving in a normal pattern. So he's going to try to raise opposite arm, opposite leg. So raise up and back down. Of course, he's breathing normally when he does this. He's keeping everything flat. He's going to do, and he's going to alternate side to side. Good. Just like that. So now after you get the hang of this, you should feel it in your low back, in your glute, a little bit in your hamstring, but it shouldn't be much as we discussed earlier because it should be mostly everything else. After you master this, you can go up on your hands and knees. And when you do this, it's important to keep your hip and back at 90 degrees as well as your knee at 90 degrees, so right here and there. Your hands should be directly below your shoulders. Shoulder blades should be back and tight, back flat, hips straight. And one way you can do to see if you're really doing it right is you can put a water bottle on your back like that. And the trick should be, you gotta keep the water bottle on top of you. So the first thing, there you go. You go opposite arm, opposite leg, keep it nice and straight. And as you can tell, he struggled a little more on that side because this leg didn't go out as much. So that'd be something that you can see. That was a better one. So in doing this, you can see where people have their weaknesses and where they need to work on. And another one you can do off of this, which is very hard because this is actually a form of testing, is you can do the same arm, same leg. And I'm just going to take that off. So go ahead and give it a try. That's okay. As you can see, it's very hard to do this one. Very few people can do it, but that would be a score for someone who has very good core strength and very good back stability.
Well, that was great. I think those are some great exercises and really showing people how to really support their spine better. I think that's one of the missing links, definitely in the gym. I know we see it in therapy a lot.
Yeah, and those are just some of the few basic ones. There's a lot more you can go off of that.
And JT, how often should they do these exercises?
Well, that's something we're going to get into now, actually, so it's a good question. There's different kinds of exercises. There's the high frequency, low intensity, and the high intensity, low frequency. These are more of the low intensity, high frequency type, which you can do on a daily basis, especially the abdominal bracing when you're practicing, walking around your kitchen, you're doing breakfast, whatever it is. They can be done all day long, literally. Like I was talking to you about, you could actually do these when you're doing a presentation at work. You could be working on your bracing and no one will know it because you should be able to maintain this while still having a conversation because it should be so second nature to you that you do it all the time. You don't realize it.
And I think one of the big things that people begin to love about these things is they think, okay, yeah, I can do this every day and stuff like that. But actually, when people start to feel less back stress, just from these simple motions like bracing yourself, I was working with someone the other day, and just teaching him some basic bracing techniques, and he just so used to back pain as well as a lot of people with chronic pain are, they just live with it. And I was talking to him, I was like, listen, there's things you live with, but the pain you're going through is not something you have to. There's times you need a therapist, but other times, listen, you got to put in your due diligence.
And that's actually a great comment to make there. Now, somebody who has back pain, or if it's new, old, recurrent, whatever it is, it's always better if it's something that's coming up, to at least consult a medical professional first before attempting any kind of strength training or activity. Go there just to make sure there's nothing else going on, because you never know what it could be.
That's a very good point. And Angela, you have something to say?
Oh, what you just showed us, is that something I can do like day in and day out at my desk?
Yeah, you could do it at your desk, like I was saying. I showed it when Chris was in the supine position. You could do it sitting at your desk at work. You can do it when you're walking around. You can do it whenever. You could even do it before you get out of bed in the morning.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter, because it should come to where it's so second nature to you. You're doing it at all times.
And that is really truly training for function.
That is.
It's what the muscles are meant to do, whether they're trained right to do it, that's up to you, and good coaching, as kind of JT showed.
And that exercise can also be done with when you go into the gym. You should always maintain the proper thing, because that's one way people get hurt a lot. They go to try to do something, lift too much weight, and they're not bracing themselves properly, and they hurt themselves. So when you have that good technique, the good form, the good stability in your spine and the internal course that we talked about, you'll be able to do a lot more and not hurt yourself as much. And it'll feel easier to you because you won't be stressing your back.
Now, to give some people a little more idea of what we're talking about by low intensity, high duration, if you will, and high intensity, low duration or low volume, it really becomes a significant thing when we talk about training for muscle tone and things like this. The exercises that JT showed were really perfect for anyone. They're less stressful, very low impact, low compression in the spine, and these are things that need to be done by, in my opinion, everyone. There's not a lot of people out there with good posture. You're not going with it. You got to really work it. So with that said, those exercises are perfect for it, and I know you had a lot of questions on it. On my side, I work with a lot of people who are looking to, increase muscle tone, if you will, or looking to see their abs more, and making their muscles stronger, things like this. In this case, you really need to pick exercises that do apply muscle stress. But the way people make a mistake is they pick exercises that do stress out muscles, but mind you, muscle stress is the benefit of the exercise. That's where the benefit comes from. But they pick exercises that are higher, that have a higher cost. And those costs are orthopedic in nature. That means stress in the spine, compression in the spine, and if you're at risk for issues already like herniations, things like this, you'll be putting yourself in a very hazardous position. But just like JT was going over very healthy exercises towards creating that stability, we're going to go over some very good exercises that will affect muscle tone without strain. To interject what we were just saying a little bit earlier, before you attempt any exercise, especially that we present on here, first of all, make sure you see your primary health physician, to make sure you're good to go with exercise. And also make sure you get good coaching. These exercises we're doing are safe, but you can do the safest exercise in the world. If you do it wrong, there's going to be problems. So with that said, though, one key note I'm going to mention here, because I know we have a question about this a little bit later, I believe. If you're doing an ab exercise, as I alluded to a little bit earlier, to burn body fat, develop a new strategy quickly. The exercises we're going to show you, you're going to fatigue your muscles very quickly. And when you do that, when you fatigue that muscle tissue, again with low compression in the spine, expect big results in terms of actually building up strength and muscular endurance. Okay? And also the exercises we're going to do are going to help burn calories as well. So I'm back here with Chris. We're going to go over some basic exercises to begin with. Now we are going to go over some calorically expensive exercise, one in particular today. But for right now, we're going to kind of follow JT's lead and just go over some basic stuff first and really work on spine stability or stabilization, as JT called it, is tightening the corset. We're going to do some basic things on that and also work on neutral spine positioning. One of the things that really puts people in danger in the gym is not having that spine in the right position. When that spine is not in the right position, when you're doing even basic movements like a squat with no weight, you can definitely put compression on either side of the intervertebral disc. And when you do that, those forces can actually generate hernias and also low back pain. So Chris, I'm just going to have you lie back if you would. Okay. So I'm going to have to draw the feet in just like this. Okay. Now what I'm going to do to begin with is just a simple test to kind of see if he has any muscular imbalances within his hips and or hamstrings. I'm going to have you put your legs flat to begin with. Go ahead and put your legs flat. And just be aware of how your lower back feels in this position, if you would. Okay, just be aware of it. Now bend your legs back so again your feet are flat now, just like this. Good. Now be aware of how your lower back feels in this position. Which feels more comfortable to you. Okay, so that tells us his hip flexor is a little bit tight right here. Okay, that's a lot of the population. So what this exercise is going to do right now is well, first we're going to help him be aware of his neutral spine position. We're going to get to that core tightening again, or the corset tightening, if you will, or bracing. And then we're going to go over a specific exercise. So what I'm going to do with Chris to begin with is if you don't mind, I'm going to put my hands on your hips, Chris. What I'm going to have Chris do is I'm going to have him rock his hips all the way back. Okay, we know that's too far back. Okay, that's posterior pelvic tilt. Now we're going to go anteriorly with it all the way forward, and we know that's too far forward. The mid position is what we can term as approximately his neutral spine position. This is where his spine's more aligned, and when his spine's more aligned, the compression on the intervertebral disc is more even, and that is what we can call a healthy position. Next thing we're going to go over is the belly button in, okay, tightening up all this, and tighten up everything, Chris, okay? So when we do exercises, we want to brace everything. So what I'm going to do is shove him a little bit here, and yeah, now he's not moving at all, and I know he's really kind of braced in right there. Good. Now I'm going to have him do a little something different, okay? I'm going to have you put one leg flat, Chris. And Chris is actually doing the right thing. He's actually keeping his hips in neutral. The tendency is to let those hips come forward because of the tightness in the hip flexors. But with that said, Chris is keeping that neutral spine position back here. If your leg's slightly bent, that's okay, because your hip flexor is a little bit tight. Belly button in, okay? Many people have done a crunch before. Again, it is not energy expensive, but we're going to do it in a way that's going to help really build up strength and stability within the area. The first thing I have Chris do is what he's doing already, just stick fingers behind the head. If you're going for muscle tone, there's a couple principles you want to follow. Principle number one, you want to keep constant tension on the muscle. Your objective when you're training is to fatigue the muscle tissue, not to keep moving just for movement's sake. You want to go through a safe range of motion as well as, well, stress out that muscle. So Chris, what I'm going to have you do is I'm going to have him crunch up a little bit. I know he's in a position of tension when his rib cage kind of disappears or gets flush with the rectus abdominis here. Belly button in, Chris. Okay, so when he's crunching up, I don't want his belly button to kind of stick out. So in that position, Chris, we're going to have you very slowly do it, keeping your chin up. He's going to slowly crunch up, and as you do so, exhale completely. The more he exhales, the more the air is released from the diaphragm. If there's air left in the diaphragm, that actually limits his range of motion. So very slowly, Chris, crunch up and exhale. Good. Just next time, keep the belly button in, slowly up. Good. And up again. Slowly down. Belly button stays down. And up again. No more hitting my finger. By having my finger behind here, I'm just giving him sensation when he's doing the wrong thing. And up. Good. Let's do 5 more and keep that tension on. 5. Next thing we're doing is we're having a constant tempo, which is about a 1-2 count up. Slowly 1-2 count down and up. 2 more. Belly button stays down for me. Belly button in. 1 more time. Down and relax. Good job. How'd it feel?
Good.
Okay, a little bit of work, right?
Absolutely.
So by doing things in this way, we work on our tempo, especially when we're trying to increase muscle tone. We'll talk about sports specifics in a little bit. But even for sports specific individuals, you want to gain control over that midsection. Okay, one of the things we're working on right here is again before bracing. But when Chris was doing the movement, his belly button was kind of pushing up, so he really needs to work on that core or that corset strength, if you will, to kind of keep things down. Okay, but a lot of people lack that to begin with. Okay, all right. So with this exercise right here, I'll have him start by doing around 15 to 20 repetitions with the fatigue I saw him going with. If I have him try to do too many, his form goes awry. That's not what we want to do here. So you want to start off small, end up big, so to speak, okay? And by doing things this way, as well as knocking out muscular tension, you're not putting that amount of excessive flexion on that spine, which again, keeps it safe. So when you're doing this exercise, take about 2 to 3 sets of it, 3 to 4 times a week maximally. And the main thing you're looking to do is progress your repetitions. Endurance is the key. Just as JT went over a little bit earlier, with most midsection exercises, you want to really work on muscular endurance because that's what they do throughout the day. Okay. Next, I'm going to show Chris a little maneuver that's going to, well, make him work and make him burn some calories at the same time. Okay, so I'm here with Chris. We gave him an opportunity to practice this technique a little bit more so we master it and make it look good on camera. Okay. So, Chris, do you think you're ready? All right, so the first thing we're going to do is going to start up in a plank position. This exercise is called the plank turn, so guess what you're going to do when you're doing the exercise.
But unlike the other ways you've seen us, what we're going to try to do during this movement is we're going to try to keep our hips as well as our torso in one line. And that's where the trickiness comes. Now in his plank position, he's going to make sure his shoulders are right over his elbows. Okay, his head's down or in a proper spinal position. His hips are still. Okay, if I try to push him, if he has the right position, okay, he's going to be able to hold that position. So even if I push resistance against him, he's able to stabilize that position. And his toes are underneath his ankle. Now what he's going to very slowly do, excuse me, he's going to very slowly turn towards his right. Very slowly come up, Chris. Okay, keep your hips up a little bit higher, please. Come down slow, smooth, slow, slow, slow. Okay, and do it one more time, Chris. Slower this time, slow. Okay, and keep those hips up, hips up. There we go. Good job, Chris. Now slowly down the same. Everything stays in one line and break. Great job, Chris. Now listen, guys, that was just 2 repetitions, and it took his breath away. If you do this exercise the right way, let me tell you, there's going to be a lot of benefits to come from it. Number 1, you're going to burn a lot of calories. Number 2, a lot of work on the midsection, the transverse abdominis, rectus abdominis, as well as the obliques. That means pretty much 3/4 of your midsection right there, guys. There's a lot of benefits, so make sure you do it slow, do it controlled. Quality over quantity.
Let's review some of the exercises that JT and Damien presented. JT showed us a few low-intense, high-volume exercises. These exercises can be done daily. Damien showed us more high-intense, low-volume exercises. These exercises should be done no more than 3 to 4 times per week. Let's get back to the forum.
So hopefully that gives a little better insight onto potentially some great exercises that can be healthy on the spine, as well as like very well aggressive towards increasing that muscle
It
tone.
looked like that second one was very hard for Chris to do.
Exactly.
Thanks,
So-
guys. They were great exercises. Let's get into our final question of the day, though. Is a pre-workout shake or supplement necessary?
It's a good question, and a really good. There's a couple ways we can go actually with the answer. First of all, it really depends upon the goal again. Number one thing is make sure again you talk to your physician before you really start implementing things. If you're allergic, things like that can have bad consequences. So make sure you talk to your doctor about any regime changes with regards to your nutrition. But with that said, there is plenty of studies out there, and one study we'll list on our sources after this show is done. That actually went over in terms of a group that was actually after hypertrophy and body composition change, meaning body fat reduction and or increasing muscle tissue. And they tested a pre-workout and post-workout supplement. In the control group, they found that there was very little success with that. There was some muscle gain, but compared to the actual test group, there were significant changes. The reason why a pre-workout drink could be successful, JT can attest to this. There are some times to where not only are is training tough, but sometimes you're fatigued. When it comes to endurance training, you really, at certain times throughout your training year, if you will, or training cycle, the volume is very high. And what happens if you're not able to give your all during these workouts? Growth or acceleration of performance does not happen. Most, basic pre-workout supplements towards weightlifting. Now, this is where we're going to kind of differentiate things from endurance training and the weightlifter. Is most, pre-workout drinks formulated towards the weightlifter, if you will, or strength trainer. They're designed with compounds that actually increase vasodilation. That means the widening of your blood vessels, and potentially that leads towards more blood. That will lead towards more blood toward working muscles. Now, what they put in that stuff also is creatine. Creatine is something you have in your muscles right now, but basically, when you're training, your body uses ATP, as we kind of went over a little bit earlier. It is movement energy. You got to have it. And what creatine does, in the form that they have in these supplements, it actually gives you extra. and it gives you, if you will, more muscular performance for a longer time. And when you do this, even at 1 or 2 repetitions extra during a set, you overload that muscle tissue. And that is one of the key things towards progressing yourself in terms of growth, in terms of performance, if recovery is where it needs to be.
Okay, so you're talking about with muscle hypertrophy and strength trainings, but how does that change for endurance athletes?
Well, that's a good point. Well, let me kind of revisit strength training for a second. The reason why creatine is very important and effective towards a strength trainer, well, I'll put it this way. You know, when you're working out, you do enough repetitions, you feel it burning your muscles. So the burning of muscles happens when your body is basically breaking down sugar to create ATP, okay, which is, bottom line again, fuel. Before all that happens, though, the first couple repetitions, you don't feel much, even if it's heavy weight. When the first couple of seconds that you train with the weights, your body uses the ATP it has. That's broken down very quickly in the first 3 seconds. After that, your body's got to have a way to replenish. And the one thing your body does have in it is creatine. Creatine phosphate, if you will. The phosphate from that creatine is basically cleaved off, as they say, and put on an ADP molecule. Basically, more ATP is created. Okay? And you put more creatine in up to a certain point, because you don't want to overdo it. There's plenty of reasons why. But bottom line is you give your body extra so you can actually have a couple more seconds more of contractual ability, or 1 or 2 repetitions more. Okay?
And that's safe to do that?
If you do it in a safe way, but unfortunately, when it comes to many things, people don't do it in a very safe way. People, you know, sometimes do things too much, and the issues. They don't have a lot of long-term studies with creatine and things like that, but there is an issue if you do too much just too much and abuse it. It can actually affect, because it has phosphates in it and so forth. It can affect the kidneys. So that means, you know, really follow the directions and, you know, use it when appropriate. But with that said, though, when you do use it safely, there's plenty of evidence that really shows an increase in whether it be sports performance when it comes to, you know, intense sports like football, things like that, as well as, in this case, strength training. Now, for endurance athletes, things change because you're doing things in an endurance fashion. 1 or 2 repetitions more really doesn't make a difference for you. It's the long-term effect of it.
So would this be more of getting the glucose in your system enough to maintain the fuel stores?
Well, number one thing is, in my opinion, like one of the best things to do in terms of competition, one of the things done is if you actually carb load correctly, and we've touched on that. We'll be touching on that later, but that's a very important thing you can do. There's been plenty of evidence, you know, with caffeine in terms of using that for training and how your body better utilizes fatty acids. When you get to become a more advanced endurance athlete, your body actually starts to preserve some of that glycogen. Okay, and your body actually works off a little bit more fatty acids and so forth like that. But we'll be giving some more information on the endurance athletes definitely in the future. Absolutely. Okay.
Okay, that wraps up our show. See you next time.
Yeah. Thank you guys for coming in. And if there's any questions, please email them to us or comments. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. The last point of discussion for today was on pre-workout supplements. Let's review some of the benefits for the recreational weightlifter or strength athlete. Creatine, amino acids, and vitamins and minerals. Damien also covered some of the benefits of caffeine for the endurance athlete. Well, that wraps up this session. Stay tuned for a preview of our next session.